Please welcome Tom Kalenderian, Executive Vice President and General Merchandise Manager, Men's, Children's, and Home, Barneys, New York, and Jean Palmieri, Senior Editor, Men's, WWD.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. So we wanted to start off talking a little bit about your background. You have an unusual longevity at Barneys. Do you mind telling us how long you've been there?
This marks 37 years that I joined the company.
I just celebrated 30, so I guess I'm the newbie.
Congratulations.
So
yes.
That's good. So it's very rare for somebody to stay at a company that long. Why have you stayed at Barneys all these years?
Why would I leave? I think you have to look at situations like this as never one reason or one thing that makes you feel a certain way. You know, in life, everything is a sum total of many parts, and I had such a unique experience being exposed to a family that was on the cutting edge of every aspect of the retail industry, and their level of creativity and innovation and their constant search to do something better had all of these issues had so many deep effects on my personality, I think, and my point of view and my perspective on business, that I was more than loyal. I was fascinated by what they were interested in, and it really never stopped to amaze me at how they never felt that they were done. So it was a consistent learning experience that was life-changing, and in some ways certainly affected me in a way that I knew how lucky I was to be there at the time, and I honestly never wanted it to end.
Now, you didn't obviously work with Barney Pressman, or did you?
I did know Barney. Barney was retired by the time I joined the company in '79. However, you know, like most fathers, they can't stay away from their kids. So one of his kids was the store. So in the off months, he came up from Miami, and he would spend the warm months with us in the north, in the heat of New York in June and July. But it was an amazing opportunity. But, you know, as a kid growing up in New York, I was lucky enough to come to the store with my dad. He bought his suits there, and I was persistent enough to say that I wanted to graduate from college in an Armani suit. So I was hanging around the store a little bit. I had my Just Looking button that was one of the advertising campaigns at one time where Mr. Pressman was concerned that the store was possibly off-putting or pretentious in some way as the store kept elevating. And they had this button that said Just Looking that allowed you to peruse through the store without being questioned or assisted until you really wanted it. So long story short, I've always known about Barneys. I've always loved Barneys, and I've always looked up to Barneys as a pinnacle in understanding not just menswear, but also understanding clientele, understanding the brand direction. As I said, they were constantly evolving and improving on every aspect of what the customer experienced, and it's so much a part of our DNA that it has been a great opportunity.
So it was Fred Pressman who gets a lot of the credit for elevating and bringing some of the European designers over here for the first time. So how closely did you work with Fred, and what did you learn from him?
I initially started in the store as a temp. I had a 30-day sales job that I thought was obviously a fun opportunity. I was out of college. I had worked at Bloomingdale's nights and Saturdays for 4 years and thought that was going to be the direction. Either I go into a training program, or I go back to school, or I approach the wholesale community. And a friend was at Barneys, and he said, "Why don't you try this? It's an incredible group of people." And I did. 30 days became till today. I stayed in sales for a year. I moved on to management in year 2, and in year 3, Jean Pressman said, "I hope you have a passport. You're going to Europe next Tuesday." And that was the beginning of my buying experience. After the first trip, when we came back and Fred started to look at what we were buying, something happened. There was an office meeting, and the next thing I know, Fred said to me, "You're working for me." So I reported to Mr. Pressman for 17 years, and that was probably the most incredible experience of my life.
Now, one of the things that Barneys is most famous for, and you in particular, is that you have this ability to find these niche brands that maybe no one has ever heard of. So how do you do that? Where do you find them?
It's a constant constant work in progress. Number one, we have the most incredible team of merchants, and Barneys and its brand draws intelligent, creative, innovative people to this brand, and they strategically know the value of launching with Barneys. So it's a combination of our team, all of us, our senior management, everybody shares this instinct and the nose to find the next great thing. So it's this culmination of all these different points coming together where we do have these opportunities and can execute well simply because we have such an incredible, dedicated communications team and a digital team that focus on not just the digital experience, but the store experience. So it's seamless because we know our customers are using both.
Now, I know this story because I was lucky enough to have you tell it to me, but I was hoping you could share with the audience about how you found Greg Lauren the first time.
I didn't know who Greg was. I had not heard of him. I apologize, Greg, because I know you were an actor and a fine artist before this point, but I got a phone call late in the day, about 5:30, 6 o'clock, from someone who I respect, and this gentleman said, I think there's something you have to see. There's a guy here from LA, and he said the name so fast it didn't register. And he said, can you get down here? And I said, to Great Jones Street? And how much time do I have? He said, well, he's getting on a plane tomorrow morning. Please come. I got in a cab and I went downtown. I walked into a loft space that was filled with art, clothes as art. I was honestly speechless, and I knew in a moment that this was something great. At least for me, I felt it was great. So I do think, as a business person, being a retailer and being somebody that considers themselves really passionate about merchandising, it's one part art and one part math. But at the end of the day, if you don't feel the art, you can't do the math. So for me, it was such a great moment to meet Greg and to see him present in his way. And he literally staged the clothes on clotheslines with clothespins. And what he had done was he took army fabric from tents and duffel bags and coats from the 1940s, Second World War veterans' garments, and repurposed everything into new fashion. And it was really beautiful and really amazing. And it was actually something he had done in paper as an artist, as a fine artist. And now he felt if he could sew it in a hard paper and make it look like clothes, he could make it into clothes. And it was something that was great. I contacted Mark Lee, our CEO, that evening, and I said, Mark, I know you're super busy, but can you come meet me at 7:30 tomorrow morning before this guy gets on a plane? Mark was there at 7 in the morning. He was there before me. And I think for all of us, we then brought everyone in, Daniela Vitale, Charlotte Bleckman, the merchant team. Everyone came down and everybody joined hands and said, we love this idea. We're going to build on this idea. We immediately put together a plan and put Greg through many of our stores and personal appearances. And to this day, he's one of our top vendors. So I think that's a really great experience of taking somebody from being an artist that may not have ever thought they were going to be in business in that way to being one of the most important forces. And I think what he did in New York Men's Fashion Week this week was fantastic. I thought it was absolutely inspiring and beautiful. And if you noticed in the presentation in the far right corner of the room, there were clotheslines with clothes on clothespins.
So how do you know that something like that is going to work? Greg's collection is not exactly mainstream.
The biggest brands in the world may not work. Nothing is easy. Everything is something that has to be thought about and nurtured and coddled every single day. Fortunately, we have a great team, but we do have a lot of brands to manage. We're not a mono brand, so we have to divide our attention where the priorities lie. So I do think that a great idea can become a great business, but it does take the same approach that you put into your top vendor.
So tell me, what are the strongest categories of business for you today? And has that changed in all these decades that you've been there?
There's no question today social and pop culture is driving a lot of the energy around what's successful. So it permeates ready-to-wear, obviously. It permeates footwear. So naturally, no question to understand. It's not surprising to understand how collections like Vetements that are stressing hoodies and sweats, and brands that are pushing, like Buscemi, that are pushing street sneakers in a very deluxe way, are driving the interest from the client. So it's very much about the moment that we're living in today, where influencers are having a great effect on what consumers want, and it is changing the momentum and some of the dimension of what we're doing well with today. Overall, we're doing very well, but we have very high peaks and some valleys. And I think that, again, as I just said, we need to focus on the parts of the business that really need the most attention right now to get things working in concert at an even keel.
So how important are exclusives to you, and how do you handle them? I know that you have a deal with Russell Westbrook, among others.
Exclusivity is probably one of the key earmarks of the Barneys brand, dating back to the 70s, when most of the clothing sold in a store like Barneys was natural shoulder American clothing. And Fred Pressman was challenged to say, how is he going to take his store to the next dimension in 10, 20, 30 years? It was his vision that brought him to Italy to meet custom tailors like Bruno Piatelli, who were making clothes for Marcello Mastroianni, for all the Visconti and Fellini films, and to work with Hubert de Givenchy to create a collection for him, and Philippe Vinet. Who thought about these things in those days? Who stepped foot into Huntsman on Savile Row and signed a contract for 30 years to build a business, and Kilgore, French, and Stanbury? He was creating the designers that didn't exist at the time, and he was actually using tailors to become designers, because this predates Nino Cerruti and obviously Melandandri, obviously Mr. Armani and so forth, and Ferré Versace. So he was on the cutting edge of the concept of taking ready-to-wear and accessories and shoes and creating a brand awareness that would make you say, I have to have those clothes. There was a reason why, after reading in the pages of GQ in 1974, why I had to have an Armani suit. I was a little pompous to think I could get one, but I managed to get one. And it was the most beautiful suit. It was a double-breasted, two-button, notch lapel, besom pocket, ventless suit in the most gorgeous tweed fabric I'd ever seen. It was an exclusive fabric, it was an exclusive cut, and it was an exclusive designer. Even as a kid, I knew how valuable that was. Our customers respond to that kind of special, rare uniqueness that isn't impossible to create. It seems like it becomes impossible as businesses get bigger, but there's no reason we can't all stop and say, we need to continue to excite people and to make them consistently want to rediscover the brand. Because the store is 93 years old. We're going to keep on going and going. We have to constantly think about what that means and how we're relevant to the next generation. The other tenet of the business, apart from exclusivity, was youth, and it's not about age. Mr. Pressman was an older man when I met him, but he was the most modern thinker. In his mind, we were never done. And in his mind, if we weren't focusing on young guys because they would be the future, we would never really be in step and never grow the business.
That's interesting. Now, you have how many stores?
We have 23 stores. We have a website for full price and off price. We have 8 flagships, 5 regional stores that were co-ops that were converted to Barney stores that are quite small, obviously. But in addition to that, we have 10 outlets.
So how do the branch stores differ from the flagships, and which perform best in terms of menswear?
The menswear component is strong in an even way through the stores that we are in. There are 2 other stores in addition to that in Broadway and the Grove in Los Angeles where we don't do men's, because the size of the stores makes sense to do women's very well. So to answer your question, the men's penetration in those stores is very consistent, naturally where we have a larger breadth of offering, where we carry all classifications like tailored clothing in addition to designer, in addition to contemporary and footwear and accessories. We will have the biggest penetration, but naturally it is a very consistent approach across the stores.
So the most recent openings that you've had, you said that they were both on the same day,
Yes.
the San Francisco men's store,
Yes.
and the return to 17th Street, which is
Yeah.
where the business was founded. So talk to me a little bit about those stores.
Yeah,
I guess
mean,
there's slides
the
for those.
picture on the right, the bottom right, is the new San Francisco location where we had the ability to gain space and move men's out of the existing building into a street-level entrance. The entire first floor is accessories, and the lower level is a shoe department that doubled in size with a full component of luxury, designer, and contemporary ready-to-wear. In Chelsea, New York, we've re-entered the space that was previously the Barneys location, and that's the photo on the left. This is an incredible, beautiful store that in some ways does bring back memories of the original store with the amazing Andre Putman staircase. But it's more than just about architecture. It's the mood, the ambiance. I haven't spoken to one single person that said they not only visited the store, but they shopped in the store. They didn't really feel they wanted to leave the store, and that they really wanted to tell me that it was one of the nicest experiences they have. We do have an amazing staff there. They're super friendly and engaging. So again, many things that all add up to one. We have incredible marketing. We have the fantastic recreation of the jackets with the art piece connected with it and the auction and so forth, and amazing visual team helping us to fashion all of this. So I do think that these stores are not just business opportunities, but we're doing something for the city of New York or the city of San Francisco. You know, you think about stores like Wilkes-Bashford and what he did in 1962. The guy created something, you know, and that's what we're known for. And I think we're getting the chance to create something for a new generation that may not have ever stepped foot in the old Barney store on 7th Avenue.
So the mix on 17th Street, you have a relatively small men's presence there, so you had to edit down your assortment. So how did you choose what was going to make the cut on 17th Street?
We decided not to dabble. It's a designer store. If a guy wants luxury tailored clothing, we have a fantastic presentation just a few blocks away uptown where we have specialists on hand to help him with his customized clothing. So the downtown store is very aligned to the women's store because the women's store is a designer store. So when you think about that approach, it makes a lot of sense in the way that it's very consistent as you cross through the two areas of men's and women's. So much so that on the ground floor, men's Balenciaga sits next to women's Balenciaga in the accessory area, and it makes perfect sense. So I think that it was an opportunity for us to really build a business with the downtown client, a tourist that goes downtown, and potentially attract customers that may not have ever shopped uptown. So the balance and the need to be different was there as well. We wanted it to feel fresh. We even have brands in that store that we don't carry on Madison Avenue right now, so we wanted to give the store something special.
So who is the Barney's customer, and how has he changed over the years?
I think the Barney's customer is probably one of the sharpest, the men's customer, one of the sharpest consumers out there. He has a lot open to him. He has many options, but I do think that he does depend on Barney's to set a certain tone and to inform him in a certain way. He's more well-informed than not. He could tell us a lot about our brands. It's amazing sometimes when you talk to customers how much they know about brand history. But putting all that aside, I think it's a consumer that is very, very hungry for something special and something new. And it helps us raise the bar. We look up to the customer. We don't look at them any other way.
And what about online? You know, everybody says men don't really shop online as frequently or as easily as women. I mean, what is your experience?
That's not true, and that things are changing. There may have been a time where none of us were comfortable shopping online. As we become more comfortable with the process, I think that changes things too. But apart from that, I think it's a matter of need, and I think that one of the most precious commodities for a lot of people is time, and the fact that the website is improving day by day, season by season. Our microsite called The Window is a magazine that informs you not just about the brands that we carry, but about other experiences that you could have in your life, whether it's travel or just information that you didn't know. It's an opportunity for us to speak to you every day. So maybe when you're having your morning coffee, instead of reading the newspaper online, maybe you're reading Barney's The Window.
Well, I do, but you know. And is that a good way for you to let them know about your exclusives and the special events and things like that, or is it more of an educational experience?
I think it's critical. I think we're a digital society. You know, mobile is half the business, and I think that when you realize how we depend on mobile, it's critical to be speaking to people in that manner. Print is beautiful. We all love magazines, but the reality is we will probably have a device in our hand more likely than we'll have a book in our hand.
And we have to wrap up, but it's still fascinating to me, your longevity, and you've gone through a number of ownership changes, management changes, and yet somebody from, you know, your competitors, Neiman's, or somebody must have come to you over the years and tried to get you to leave, and you haven't. Why not?
It's never been better. We have the most incredible team of people. I mean that sincerely. And from the ownership to senior management to the team of people. I'm wearing a bracelet. A lot of guys are wearing bracelets today, but maybe yours are because you think they're cool. My team gave me this. And what it means to me is probably the most important accomplishment of my life, is that I've hopefully helped some young people enjoy what I've enjoyed in my life. So I think that when you realize every organization is not about merchandise and stores and design, it's about people. And I've never, ever, ever stopped loving that part of what we do. So I feel very fortunate. Besides, the other places don't say Barney's New York.
Well, that says it all. So I guess we can open up to questions.
No. You're disqualified.
I'm disqualified. Well, I'm so happy you opened downtown. It's beautiful. For me, in the last 5 years, Barney's has felt so downtown. It only was a matter of time that you opened. Have you been surprised by anything after the launch of Barney's downtown?
Honestly, I mean this truthfully, I'm surprised how successful it is. It's beating a plan.
But is it selling some things that you didn't expect to, or brands?
Yes. Yeah, there is a trend in the pattern of what's selling. And brands and items that are very important at Madison Avenue are not as important in that store. And items that have been at Madison Avenue all season, putting it downtown, they started to sell rather quickly. So there's definitely a nuance within New York City. I mean, no different than you could say Beverly Hills to Glendale. But it's very interesting. It's a good point, and I think that we have to spend a lot of time trying to understand how to merchandise to those differences and have the right instincts to know how to uncover those opportunities.